Welcome to the HDR Masterclass. I'm Patrick Cook, and I would really like to welcome you here today. This is going to be a very interesting course. There's going to be a number of topics that we're going to be talking about. What we want to do is to bring you to a point where you can go into the field and take a series of captures specifically for HDR processing, and then be able to bring them back to your PC and create some memorable and remarkable images. So it's really good to have you here. Let's get started by talking about what we're going to accomplish in this course. There's really two different things that we want to be able to hone our skills on. One, of course, is going to be the optimum field capture of your images. Now, when I say optimum, I'm actually referring to taking a series of images that you can bring back to your computer for best possible results in your tone mapping or your post-processing effort. So certainly we want to have a good amount of skills in the field when we're capturing a series of images specifically for HDR processing, but we certainly also want to have proficient tone mapping skills. That's going to be an interesting and a fun segment of this course. Now, the other thing that we want to accomplish here on a broader picture is I want to help you have a better appreciation for your photography by embracing the HDR photography skills. I think you're going to find that you're going to have a better appreciation for your camera as a mechanical instrument by which to perform photography. And I think you're going to have a much better appreciation for what's involved with image processing, what's dynamic range all about, what is all this processing, what does this tone mapping mean, what are EVs, what's bit depth. So I think you're going to have a much better appreciation for imaging as well as your camera. Now, there's going to be a number of topics that we'll be talking about here in this class. One certainly is course objectives. We want to be able to help you understand what it is that we're going to be trying to accomplish in this class. I firmly believe that if we know what we're trying to do, we're actually in a better position to be able to develop those skills and then get to a point where you can actually embrace HDR photography as a regular methodology, not just the occasional effort to maybe you're faced with a landscape scene where there's very bright skies, and certainly HDR photography will help you out considerably in that particular scenario. But I want you to be able to appreciate HDR more as a much more common method of photography. Now, we'll be talking about some HDR examples. I really believe that if you see what a single image capture might look like versus an HDR processed image, I think you're going to find right then and there that HDR is very often the way to go. We'll talk about what this HDR is. What's the problem we're trying to solve? What are we trying to do with HDR? Is it really worth the effort? And so I think you're going to find that a very interesting topic. Now, all of these topics, of course, are leading up to where the core skills of capture and tone mapping. But these are all foundational information. We'll talk about some of the benefits of HDR. Now, I want to be able to address the benefits on a personal or photography level, as well as some of the technical benefits that you might derive as well from HDR photography. So we'll talk about benefits. I'll give you a little bit of brief history of HDR. It's 167 years old at this point, and I want to try to help you appreciate why it came into existence, what it was trying to deal with, some of the contributors throughout the years to HDR photography as we know it today. We'll talk about the fundamentals of HDR, dynamic range and EVs and RAW and JPEG and all that stuff that is going to be very important for you to be able to understand so that you can have a much better, you'll be in a much better position to be able to go out in the field and do capturing, which will be the next topic. And that will be a key topic, a key segment of this training course that I think you're going to thoroughly enjoy. And when we get to that point, I'm going to be introducing you to my own field capture methods that I think you're going to find will not only be very useful to you, but will be very productive. I want you to be in a position where you can go into the field and you don't have to have an argument with yourself, well, this is more work than I wanted to do, and I don't really need HDR right now. But as I have found, I have predominantly embraced HDR for almost every photography situation that I'm in, except for family gatherings. Unless I'm taking a large group shot of my family, then I most certainly will turn to HDR, because I know that that's going to give me the greatest possible range of exposure and really be able to capture the detail, which is often true with faces, especially in a group where you're back further. So I want to be able to retain and enhance detail with HDR. So we'll get into all of that as we go. I'm going to be introducing you to a capture guide that I've developed over the years. I have one right here. This is going to be something that you're going to be able to download and utilize for your own purposes. The idea is to be able to take this into the field, and you'll have a visual memory cue for you to be able to set up your camera for field capture in an optimum way. Then we're going to get into tone capturing, tone mapping. Sorry about that. The idea during the tone mapping is to merge multiple exposures together and bring them into what's called a 32-bit format. It's called an HDR format. And then be able to develop or process the image for the greatest possible tonal range across the image, the best possible detail retention, and various other attributes that you would want to develop your image to be able to contain. The tone mapping term comes about because we need to take this 32-bit image and then tone map it or prepare it in such a way that it will display properly on an 8-bit device such as an LCD screen or print, which is also based upon the 8-bit tonal system. But not to get ahead of ourselves, we're going to be talking about tone mapping in much more depth towards the latter portions of this course. We'll finish up with the wrap-up, and we'll summarize. We'll talk about where we're going to go from here with HDR. I'll give you a couple challenges you can work with. And we'll also be talking about some resources, books and software, various things that people have developed over the years to make HDR photography not only fun and engaging, but also successful. So, I would like to welcome you to the course. We're going to have a good time here. We're going to cover a lot of material, and by the time we're done, the idea is that you have HDR photography skills which you can immediately put into place and go out there and enhance your photography and just have a good time with it and be creative if that's what you choose to do. So again, welcome to the HDR Masterclass. I'm happy to have you here. Let's get started by talking about the objectives of the course.